All right. Unless anyone has any objections, I think we can get started here.
All yours, man.
All right. I'm Ryan Townsend. I am from St. Olaf College. I work as the intramural director there, and then I work in the Northern Sun as the line of scrimmage official. So just going over today, timing and substitutions, and a lot of this will be review for people. So take it with a grain of salt. And obviously, anyone, please stop me if clarifications, questions, things to add. Just jump in. That's totally fine. Okay. So with that, we'll start. Okay, so pregame, and this is, I think Billy just brought it up about there's a potential change to this in terms of timing on this. But the pregame, we're going to be out there 60 minutes ahead in this L shape for kicking game, special teams type stuff. This is just a good thing to know when it goes from L to our kind of standard, 45 to goal line view, just because this is where coaches kind of play their games at the beginning, whether it's with us as the officials or with each other. So just being aware of when that is. And then I don't know how many special team coaches have asked me or tried to go longer on punting or, whatever. So just being able to talk to them ahead of time, right when you get out, in terms of when we're going to our buffer zone, which is at the 40-minute before the kickoff. So 40 minutes on the clock, we'll go to this buffer zone where each team is going to be 45 to end line, and then we'll have it at 10-yard buffer zone with at least 3 of us in that area. So just understanding that and making sure that there's some, there's a view that we are enforcing that uniformly for both teams. Extension of periods. So we're going to extend a period if during the last time down, or with an time down, if during a down in which time expires, we have an accepted penalty for a live ball foul that is not a loss of down foul by the offense. We have offsetting fouls, or we have an inadvertent whistle. One thing that's important to note here is during a down in which time expires. So the clock actually has to run out during the down. So if we have a holding penalty and at the end of the play, there's 3 seconds left, and then we wind the clock, and then the clock runs out, we can still end the period in that situation. So we're looking at the when the clock runs out during the down. Obviously, if on an end time down, we also have, one of these 3, then we'll keep extending until we get a play that we don't have one of the 3. And then we'll also extend the period. If a touchdown's scored, we're going to extend the period for the try, unless it's the end of the 4th period. And essentially, if the scoring team is behind by 1 or 2, we're going to play it. If the scoring team is ahead by 1 or 2, they have the option of not playing it, and most of the time they wouldn't. I don't know why they would. And then if the scoring team, if it doesn't matter to the final score, then we're not going to play it. And then same thing, if first period, we're going to play them all during the first period or all during the second or third period, and that might be a win factor. So we're not going to change ends of field for the try or something like that. The play clocks, we have the 40-second and the 25-second play clock. So the 40-second clock begins when the ball is signaled dead. There are 4 main ways we signal the clock dead on most plays. So we've got the open palm up, like in the photo. We have our, we have our wind in bounds type thing. We've got, we have our stop the clock signal, could, and then incomplete pass. So the main ones that are going to be for the 40 are going to be incomplete pass, our dead ball signal, and then our wind the clock signal usually will be as well. If the 40-second clock gets down to under 25 before we have marked the ball ready for play, we're going to reset it to 25, and we'll talk about how we reset the clock later in this. And then if for some reason it's interrupted, then we're going to reset it back up to 40 with a double pump. So if we have clock malfunction or it just never starts or something like that, we'll just start it at 40 and go. 25-second clock. So these are all times when we'll set for the 25-second clock after stopping the game clock. So penalty administration, if we have a timeout, so whether that's charge team, media, injury, or helmet off for an offensive player. If we measure at all, or if team B is awarded a first down, and the key there is team B, so it's not, you know, team A versus team B, it's just team B for 25. And then the start of each period is going to be a 25-second clock. The start of a team's possession series in an extra period. If we're coming back from an instant replay review, we don't have review in my conference, so we don't worry about that. And then pretty much any other administrative stoppage. So if the referee is stopping the game, maybe they're conferencing with coach, something like that. And then all of these, we're going to start on the ready for play. So our referee will come in and we'll chop in the clock, start the play clock on the ready for play, and then they, depending on what happened before that, may wind it, or it may be a snap type thing. So we'll talk about snap and ready for play next in terms of game clock. Game pace. So there's increasingly an emphasis on game pace. And a lot of this is going to be on, the R and the U and the C in terms of spotting the ball and restarting the clock. But some of this is really for all of us. And so a couple of things: free kicks, media timeout, just getting teams out of those when they need to be out of those. So for free kicks, we want to get them out, about 45 seconds after we've got after the end of the try, or if we're at the beginning of period, then that would be a little different. For media timeouts, we're trying to get them out about 30 seconds to the end of the media timeout, so that by the time they're set up, ready to go, we've got maybe 5 seconds left and we can get it blown in right when the Red Hat's ready to get off the field. Penalty enforcement. The biggest thing with penalty enforcement is just knowing the situation, being ready to help or talk to coaches through whether they have an option to start the clock on the ready for play or the snap, or if they have an option for a 10-second runoff or those kind of things. So just sideline officials really being ready for that and knowing those situations. A couple things about that is just knowing when we're under 1 minute, when we're under 2 minutes, and communicating that with the rest of your crew is going to be important in knowing that situation and when those apply. Spotting the ball, it's going to be, the C or the U, depending on whether you're a 7 or 8 man. And what I've been told is we want the ball consistently spotted on a 40-second clock. We want it consistently spotted at 32. So that's something, you might learn with time in terms of how to do. Now that'll sometimes be delayed, but we want to, in order to make sure that we're giving both teams the same advantages, we want to make sure that that's spotted consistently. And then restarting the clock when we have first downs, out of bounds, outside of 2 minutes, those kind of things. Just getting a feel for that, especially referees getting a feel for that in terms of when we're restarting that clock, just to keep the game moving. With that, we'll go into snap and ready for play. So the clock will start on the snap or the ready for play after it's been stopped, and in any, in scrimmage down situations essentially. So on the snap, so if we have a touchback, we'll start it on the snap. A team A ball carrier fumble, backward pass that is ruled out of bounds, except if it's a forward fumble out of bounds. So if a team A player goes out of bounds, not a team B player, only a team A player in this situation, goes out of bounds or fumbles the ball backwards out of bounds, not on purpose, we could have we would have a snap play. Whereas if it's forward fumble out of bounds, then we'd be on the ready. Team B is awarded a first down and will next snap the ball. So this is important. So if we have a penalty that takes Team B's first down away, then that would not be on the snap, because we're now going to award Team A a first down or maybe a replay down type thing. That's important to know, is that they have to also next snap the ball. A forward pass is incomplete. A team takes a timeout. Those will both be on the snap. More on the snap. So if the ball becomes illegal, so it pops, something happens to the ball during the down at the end of the play, we're just going to kill it and we'll clock it on the snap. A legal kick down end. So anytime we have a punt, field goal attempt, if the ball is legally kicked, we're gonna have a clock on the snap on the next play. Return kick is made, or a scrimmage kick is made beyond the neutral zone. Both of those are illegal kicks that stop the play or cause the ball to become dead. So that after that, we'd march off our penalty, and then that would be a clock on the snap situation as well. And then delay a game foul on the offense or team A while in scrimmage kick formation. So if they're lined up in field goal punt formation, and then we have a delay a game foul, that would also be a clock on the snap. For all of these, the snap supersedes a ready. So oftentimes you'll have plays when there's multiple of these at play. If you have one of these that's in this clock on the snap category, we're going to be on the snap. So you have to have no clock on the snap to be on the ready. Going on to the ready for play. So clock on the ready, team A is awarded a first down. So that's your basic first down play. We just roll. There are those situations, and we'll show a play later, an ABA situation in which we have basically 2 change of possessions during the down, and A ends up with it at the end. So that would also be a clock on the ready situation. Team A fumbles forward out of bounds. We talked about that already. And the other thing with that, I guess, is remember, we got a team A fumble forward out of bounds. We're going to bring it back to the spot it was fumbled. So that's where your beanbag is really important. So that's why we're putting it there, is essentially we're putting it there and we're saying that he's down in bounds at that spot. To complete a penalty, so the exception here is Zap 10. There's some Zap 10 situations where you might have a clock on the snap, and we'll talk about Zap 10 or 10-second runoff in a little bit. Injury or helmet off will also be on the ready unless we have a Zap 10 situation, 10-second runoff situation. Inadvertent whistles, measurements, and then we have a pile up for a loose ball. So we have a big pile, we're not sure who has it, we stop it, and then team A keeps it, so we're going to have clock on the ready. Last ready one, so we have a live ball comes into possession of an official. A clock is stopped for a conference or a challenge or an instant replay type thing. So if you're talking to a head coach about something and we stop the clock for that, then we would be on the ready as well. Media timeouts. Most of mine in our games, most of ours are at change of possessions or after punt plays. So most of ours are on the snap. But if you have a media timeout for like an injury or something that might happen, then you could have clock on the ready in that situation. The referee declares a discretionary timeout, or essentially any type of referee timeout. They have for unfair noise as well. That doesn't happen a whole lot in Division II, so so just so you guys know. And then an illegal pass thrown to conserve time. That's also a Zap 10 situation that we'll talk about in a few slides. Okay, so this is an example of an ABA situation. I think this is really just an example of something that doesn't happen a ton, and you're not always ready for the clock part of this after the play happens. So we'll just let it roll and go from there.
Famer will set up in the shotgun, 2 receivers left or right now, blitz. Famer under pressure, and the ball is knocked loose, and is picked up by the Huskies. He's running all the way to the left-hand side, 30, 25, 20, and Famer strips the ball again, and it's Wayne State. They may have the ball back again, as St. Cloud looking to get some extra yards. We're going to have to get a second look at this, but I believe after all is said and done, gets it up inside the 25, just as he's got momentum swung back all the way to St. Cloud.
So we just had it ready for play. Clock hasn't started. Obviously it doesn't say the play clock, so I don't know, but I'm assuming we had a 25 play clock as well. So just something to remember and consider when you have these kind of weird plays that you don't see all the time. Is just take your time, slow down. Obviously, 13 minutes in the second quarter, nobody even noticed, but it would be a little different in, crunch time part of games. Okay, resetting the clock. So for our crew, our back judge actually goes up and talks to our play clock operator, or both clock operators with the referee will actually, if they come down the field, then the referee will be involved in that as well. But normally our back judge does it. And the play clock operators are instructed only to reset it if signaled by the referee. Oftentimes they will reset it when the back judge does it, just because they have so much responsibility with the play clock. But our back judge always tells them not to worry about any of the sideline guys, really just the referee and him, and just to make sure that we have that. So for us, if we have a play clock that we notice needs to be reset, we use the O2Os to let everybody know, so that the referee and back judge know. So if you don't use O2Os, that might be a little different. So O2Os is official to official radios if you don't use them. And then for the game clock, we have 5-second rule. So the 5-second rule essentially means that if there's more than 5 minutes left in the half, you need a differential of 5 seconds or more to essentially reset the game clock back. And this is really if it, it should have stopped, but it ran off a little more than it should have and then stopped or something like that. So this is not if it starts on accident when it shouldn't have or anything like that. If you're under 5 minutes, we need to be more exact. So then if it's, if it's a second off, go in, correct it at a second off. But this kind of goes back to the pace of play thing, is that we don't want to be correcting a second off, 6 times in the first quarter. So we just want to get the ones that matter under 5 minutes. And then if we erroneously start the game clock started on accident erroneously. So one example given is if we have maybe a false start penalty right at the snap, and the clock shouldn't have started, but they ran a second off because they thought the ball was snapped. That's another one that we want to get corrected. So game clock is really a crew responsibility. The book says F and S are primarily responsible. On our crew, we usually say if the play goes away from you, you should have a really good idea of what's going on the clock, just because the officials on the other side have a lot going on them. So everybody kind of takes that. The other thing that I've gotten the habit of doing, especially in the last 5 minutes, is just counting in my head when a play ends. And that just gives me, I count to 3 and then I look up, it's still running. Now I know I have an idea of how many seconds ran off. So it's just something good to get in the habit of. I know we have a lot of pre-snap and post play things to do already, but it's not a bad one to have in your repertoire, especially in the last 5 minutes of a half. Spiking the ball. So if the clock is stopped and it's going to start on the ready for play whistle, the offense needs at least 3 seconds to spike it and still have time for another play. So essentially this is just setting a hard line in the sand that if it's 3 seconds or more and the clock is going to run on the ready for play whistle, they can spike it and still have another play. If it's 2 or 1, then they only have time for 1 play. So if they spike it, that would be the end of the half or the quarter of the game, whatever they're doing. I think it's really important in this. If you're stopped for a first down, ready for play, it's not a bad idea for our people to be informing. Whether it's probably the sideline should be talking to a coach if you have time, but really the referee needs to be telling the quarterback, no time to spike, no time to spike. If we're in that situation, if they have time to spike, I'm probably not worrying about it. I wouldn't worry about it as much if it's 5 seconds. You think they're going to spike, but if we're at 2 or 1, I would definitely be telling them that we don't have time to spike. Free kicks. So as I stated before, the back judge is mostly responsible for the play clock, except on free kicks, the referee is responsible, and that just makes sense because the back judge is on the sideline. So just understanding that difference in responsibility. And then the game clock is going to begin on a legal touch in bounds. So on a normal, deeper kick, it's going to be the H and the L. We just split it right down the middle, and usually there are some in the middle where we both wind to start the clock on a legal touch. On a short kick, that's probably going to be the F and the S. So just being prepared for that if you're in that situation for, whether it's kick to the 40 or something like that. And then if we have a fair catch or a catch recovery while grounded, so the first touch is a recovery while grounded, then we're not going to have any time off. But if they touch it and then go straight to the ground, or catch it and they go straight to the ground, then we should have at least a second come off. And this is really important, especially, and I think it's really easy for line of scrimmage officials to do this because they don't really have to move after a touchdown. They just go to their pylon to make sure they know the time that touchdown occurred. So just get that, you know, on your game card, make it part of your game card if it's not already, to have a time down there. So that's something to keep in mind, so that if we have an erroneous, you know, game clock start, we know. Moving on to unfair clock tactics. So this is essentially if under 2 minutes the clock is stopped to complete a penalty for a foul by the team ahead in score, or either team in a tied game, the offended team has the option to start it on the snap. So if we have, you know, the offense is down under 2 minutes, and we've got a defensive holding penalty on a running play, maybe a pull and shoot type thing, then the offense now has that option to start it on the snap, even if they didn't get out of bounds or anything. Maybe it was just a tackle in bounds. So this is really important. Again, just signaling when you're under 2 minutes, so that we know that this is in effect. And that should be part of what goes through your mind when we signal. We can't just be signaling we're under 2 minutes. We need to be thinking of all the, you know, the different rule changes that matter under 2 minutes. So this is one of them. You know, the clock is going to stop and stay stopped on an out of bounds. A ball carrier is another one. So just knowing all those things that matter under 2 minutes. And then sideline officials should be able to get to coaches relatively quickly, so they can get decisions to the referee on what they want to do. Many times it's obvious, but there are times when you do want to ask. So just make sure you understand what coaches are trying to do in that situation. So this is a clock option play. So setting it up, we've got 45 seconds in the fourth quarter in a tie game. So since it's tied, a penalty by either team that requires the clock to stop gives the other team the option. So we'll just run it.
Tries to air it out here. Long back pass. He steps in the pocket. He's scrambling. He looks over the middle. He sees Tiger with the catch down the field, and now they're in to the Golden Bear territory. And that field goal range for Adam Sage is 38. It's his longest of the year. Just barely missed 48.
So now we had a penalty on the opposite side of the field. There's a sideline warning foul on the defense. So we have a conference about it. And I think the key on this is if we know that we're under 1 or 2 and that there's going to be an option, that we can announce this all at one time. So the learning opportunity here is just for our line of scrimmage on the bottom here to be already know what the offensive team is going to want to do. So when we go back, and now we're all set up, and we got to go back and talk to them again and say, hey, you have an option. What do you want to do? And so that's the learning experience there. The other thing I would say about that is that was one where personally I did not expect them. They started on the ready, and they didn't run another play. They just took a timeout and then went and kicked a field goal. I expected them to go on the snap and at least run another play. But so it's just another thing where you have expectations on what a coach is going to do. So just, you know, making sure you're thinking in their mindset. Okay, 10-second runoff for a foul. So Nick's going to cover this in a lot of depth in his penalty enforcement, but since it's in my section, I just decided to cover it quickly. So requirements, we have the game clock running under 1 minute in the half, and then the foul stops the clock immediately. So those include, dead ball offsides, false start, anything that prevents the snap, intentional grounding to stop the clock, incomplete illegal forward pass to stop the clock, a backward pass thrown out of bounds to stop the clock, or any other foul intended to stop the clock. So that's kind of your catch-all here. So if we have a 10-second runoff, similar to the option we just talked about, we're going to want to consult with the coach. The offended team can take the yardage and decline the runoff, but they cannot decline the yardage of the penalty and accept the runoff. So it goes one way, basically. If the runoff is accepted, then the team that committed the penalty can use a timeout to prevent the runoff. So if we have the runoff, we're going to subtract 10 from the game clock, and that'll be an announcement by the white hat. And then if the runoff is applied, the clock will start on the ready for play. And if it's not, it starts on the snap. So this is one where we've got, going back to our start on the snap, start on the ready. These are going to, this runoff not, or being declined essentially, is going to supersede, and we're going to start on the snap. Moving on to delay of game. So obviously our play clock expiring, advancing a dead ball. So this might happen, on a fair catch and then running after it, or he's obviously down and then gets up and runs, stuff like that. Teams not ready for play, really. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons this could happen. Like if they're not getting out of the locker room before the game or at halftime, or they just won't break a huddle to get into a free kick, you could have it. Verbal tactics that disconcert an offensive cadence. This is something to talk about with either defensive coaches or head coaches pregame, in terms of, do they have any cadences that sound like, or line calls that sound like offensive cadences, just so we're aware of them, because we don't want to be surprised by something like this. So it's not a bad idea to talk about this pregame. And then defenders in a stationary position within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage can't make abnormal, exaggerated movements. So anything that's not like football play related, designed to draw the other team to false start. And then anything else designed to delay the officials from making the ball ready for play. So you might have something where, like, laying on a player to slow the game down, not allowing the pile up, could be those kind of things.
Hey, Ryan, before you move off of that, one thing that I think is important to talk about is it relates to the delay game on the defense that you brought up.
Yep.
We have an issue, I know, at least in our league, that a lot of the quarterbacks run out of the pistol or shotgun and they clap. And so it's one thing to note that if it's not just verbal tactics, but if the offense is a team that claps, the defense can't clap. And that's something that we'd have to observe through film study or just the way the game plays. But if the offense quarterback is that team claps, then if there's any defensive clapping, we'd have to delay a game.
Good point. Thank you, Nick. Okay, so we're gonna move on. So this is a delay game, and it's under 1 minute. So it's interesting situation in which we'll just run it and we'll go from there. So we got about 15 seconds left in the game, in the half.
Sadler once again on a second and short. Sadler dropping back as time once again, throws it out near his side. High pass is tackled by
So we got a first down inbounds.
The near side. Northern says he wasn't out of bounds. Keep the clock moving, but they have to move the chains, so they stop the clock whenever they do that.
So they're out of timeouts, so they're just getting set as quickly as possible to spike. There's about 6 seconds left.
Get set to start the clock once again. And now they do start it.
So what we have, and then a flag comes in.
6.9 on the clock.
Essentially what happened here is that the ready for play was not blown in yet. So we've got a delay a game on the offense, but the clock is not running. So it's kind of a weird situation in which you might think it's 10-second runoff, and we didn't have a 10-second runoff on this, but we didn't have the clock running, so we didn't have a 10-second runoff on this type of play. So just kind of being aware of that. What I would suggest in this type of play is for our umpire to stay on it until we get it blown, because they're just going to spike it. There's not going to be, he's not going to be in a major vulnerable position if he's 2 yards off the ball on a spike. But that just didn't happen in this play, and we want to be, again, talking to the quarterback as well, in terms of just like we talked about before with the time needed to spike. So just an interesting play that came up that initially we talked about potentially being a 10-second runoff, and we concluded that it wasn't. Okay, injury or helmet off. So I put them together because there's a lot of similarities with them. So, but if we have a player is injured or the helmet comes off during play, they must leave a game. They must leave the game for one play. So there's a couple exceptions here, and actually, so for a helmet off, they don't have to leave if it's direct result of a helmet foul. And then the exception to, so charge timeout is taken. So that's only for helmet off. For injury, they got to sit out either way. They can't buy him back. So just know that. And then if we have an end of a period or those kind of things, end of a half injury, they can come back, obviously, in that situation. End of the first period, I don't believe they can, but I didn't write it down. I don't have that in front of me. Does anyone, that's correct, right? Okay. And then for injured player helmet off, if it's the only reason for the clock to stop inside 1 minute, there's a 10-second runoff option, with the exception being if there's players on both teams that are injured, helmet off, or a combination of the two, then there's no option for either team. So this is obviously just to prevent kind of unfair tactics as well. So just know that and be ready for those types of situations. Okay, so here's an injury substitution play. So we're under a minute or when the play ends. So we're at 1:02 right now.
Sunshine breaking through the clouds here. Sadler is going to run a play after the kneel down on the previous one. Bradbury, left side, gets it around, and did he get in? They're going to say he's just shy by about a yard. Bradbury has been special here today. He is down and injured now on the near sideline. Bradbury.
So we have the running back injured on the play. This is the next play here, 3rd and 1, 3rd and goal at the 1.
57 seconds left to go. Sadler on 3rd and 1.
And we actually have the nose tackle falls on the ball. So we have a dead ball, defensive offside. So we still haven't run a play. And you see on this 3rd play, we have number 2 back in the play. And we haven't run a play yet. So he essentially shouldn't be back in at this point. And it's just something to consider when you have an injury, especially if there's an interruption. It's a lot easier if there's no interruption, we run a play right away. But there's an interruption, whether it's a media timeout or some sort of interruption, just being mindful of who those people are on that. And so now we actually, if we have an injury, in addition to the referee announcing it, because sometimes our sound's not great on the speakers, we'll say who it is on the O2O as well as they leave the game. So all the officials know who the injured player is and are aware if we have some sort of delay that might make it difficult to figure out who's coming back. All right. Okay, substitution. So while the ball is in play, players cannot enter or leave the field and to substitute. We're not going to stop the play for that. It's a live ball foul, illegal substitution foul. And then substitutes do need to enter from their team area. Exiting players must leave within 3 seconds directly to their sideline, and then they can get in their team area after that. And then substitutes who become players must remain in the game for 1 play. And then players who become substitutes can't re-enter before a play as well, unless we have, timeouts taken or those kind of ends of periods, those kinds of things. Team A subs. So when Team A subs, Team B must be able to react promptly to match up. They have about 3 seconds to begin the substitution. So normally our white hat's going to give an iron cross, and then they'll look at the defending team's sideline and just see if they're going to complete. Once they start their sub, they get, adequate normal time to complete the substitution. There's an exception to this, is that we don't have to give any time on a last-second field goal if the clock's running. We don't need to give any time. So if we have a play that ends inbounds with 10 seconds to go and they're trying to run the field goal team on, we're not going to hold the snap for that. And so when we have this iron cross, it just means that, our umpire or our center judge will prevent the snap until Team B is allowed to substitute. We went away from sideline officials using the signal and just going directly to O2Os in our conference. And it's mostly because we wanted to make sure that the coaches were looking just at the referee for that. Yes, you can sub. I'm giving you time right now before they initiate a sub type thing. So that was the main reason for that. I'm wondering, do other conferences do that? Do they still use the signal, or how does that work?
We use it, and obviously, like you said, if I know the deeps are primary for Team A subs in their sideline, but I can tell you that if a guy runs right by me on Team A sideline, I'm going to signal too. I'm going to hold it till white hat. Fix it up front.
Cool. Yeah. So obviously, the more people, the better. We want to make sure that we don't miss one of those. And then the other thing to consider about this is we have a play that ends in the offensive team's bench or in Team A's bench. We almost want to just consider that an automatic sub. You just don't know who's going on and who's coming off in that type of situation. So I would just call that an automatic sub. That's what we do on our crew, and it makes sense. We don't want to put Team B at a disadvantage because they don't know who's on the field. Okay, so this is a defensive sub opportunity, and this one I'm just asking for feedback on. So essentially, it's just, was the Team B, so the team in black, given enough time to match up on this play?
Goal, and the clock will stop and then get reset once the chain is set, and the official signals to start the clock back up at 5:40 play the ball game. 34-21. USF with 10 fourth quarter points, 17 in the second quarter and 17 in the second half. And Wayne State has too many guys on the field right now. They're going to get penalized. Free play, USF wide open, touchdown. USF saw an easy play here. I believe would be his third different receiver, as Johnson has 2 receiving touchdowns, and that one was Collier making the catch. Walters is saying, is it a touchdown or not? Well, legal substitution against Wayne State, and declined, touchdown. So it took a little while to figure that out as well.
So any thoughts on this? Our defensive coach was not very, very happy with this. And we felt that they didn't react real quickly. But I just wanted to get thoughts on it in terms of what would you guys do in a situation like this?
I mean, ultimately, to me, that seems like that's a referee question to ask, unless somebody else thinks that we're really screwing it up, and then anybody else is authorized to come in and shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's hard to tell because the video is a little choppy, and I recognize that's probably a product everybody's got. But you know, if you felt good about it and the referee felt good about it, then I don't really see the defense has much of a case to make.
And one of the thoughts in the referee's decision too is that the 12th guy didn't even know he was supposed to be off. So essentially he stayed as the defensive back for 5 or 6 seconds because he didn't know he was supposed to leave. So I think that was but I mean, we do talk about, you know, the substitution rules, and for the most part, they're pretty ho-hum, you know, give the signal, defense matchups, no issue. But sometimes, once in a while, there are some discrepancies on it, and you just got to be able to talk to the defensive coach or the offensive coach if you're holding the snap on why you're doing what you're doing, and just be consistent throughout the game. So,
hey, out of curiosity, which officials had flags down on that?
So actually, I was the only official with the flag down on this play, and it was because the guy was maybe, if you can see my cursor, like right here. So he was like right in my line of vision, off. And so I went in and I was like, well, he's offsides for sure. And he's the 12th guy, so I don't know what you want to do with that.
So
I didn't know he was the 12th guy. I knew he was
sure.
offsides.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing from my perspective, because I had to play like this last year too. And I had a flag down because the guy was offside. Because I didn't know, was it the 12th guy getting off or was the 11th guy getting off? I don't know. So I'm surprised your deep didn't have a flag down for the sub component, because I'd hate to hang my hat on an illegal substitution foul as a line of scrimmage guy, because I'm not counting B, so I have no idea what's going on back there.
Yeah, and I came in, and when we came in, we talked about it, and the deep in my sense said, yeah, he was the last guy getting off, or something to that. He was the 12th guy, is what they said, and it was kind of lucky too, because he ended up staying on the field, so we could still count him. But yeah, he's like, oh yeah, he was the 12th guy, but yes, I was the only one with a flag on this play. Okay, counting players. So team A, it's going to be RU, confirm with each other, and then if we're in hurry up, then the U maybe isn't going to be doing that. If you're on an 8-man crew, then they may, with the C, having some help in there. Line of scrimmage is secondary. So on our crew, we're counting as well. And I try to count before they break a huddle. So like sub in, sub out, so that I can give a punch before I have a receiver on my line of scrimmage. Just saying like, hey, I've got you. And I'll punch forward on that. And then for team B, Our deep three are going to confirm with each other on that. And then free kicks. So we've got, the 5 up top, or the 5 in the on the straighting lines area. They have the kicking team, or team A, and then our deep 3 in that situation, LHR, will take team B and confirm with each other. And then some rules on more than 11 players. Now, it sounds like there may be a rule change to this for team B, so we'll stay tuned for that. But if team A breaks the huddle with 12 or more, or has 12 in the huddle for more than 3 seconds, then it's a dead ball foul for illegal substitution. So we'll just shut it down right away. And usually, again, that'll be R and U. Me on line of scrimmage, I'm probably waiting till they're in formation before I'm throwing it, like snap imminent type thing. I'm going to let R and U take that most of the way. And then I'm going to count like 11 times before I throw it. And then team B line in formations with 12, right now it's a dead ball foul. It sounds like they're changing it to a live ball foul. Is that right? Or they may change it to a live ball foul?
I think that's right, but it's nothing's official yet.
Yeah. It sounds like that might be changing, so just know that. Running the 12th man off, that's already a live ball, and that doesn't seem to be changing. So it's similar to the play we kind of just had. And then we kind of just talked about it. We want more than one flag down. So we want, if it's on team B, we want our deeps to have a flag down, especially a deep. If we're running off, then maybe we only have one because it's whether you got off or not. But if they're in formation, we want more than one flag on that, because that shows that we're confirming with each other, communicating with each other, that type of thing. The last thing I'm going to cover is a simulated substitution. Obviously, you can't use substitution or simulated substitution to confuse opponents. Any tactics with that. It is a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty. And then I'm going to show a play and just talk about feedback on this one in terms of the conversation is whether this is really a deceptive type play. So there's a couple. The first thing I'll say about, we'll run it first, and then I'll talk about this a little bit more.
We talked about Northern sniffing out a defensive play before. I think the Vikings might have a little inkling something tricky was coming their way.
Yeah, well read by the defense. Ends up as about the shortest flea flicker you'll find. And now the jumbo package is in with defensive players Bryce Zawatsky and Noah McPherson in the block. Hand off to the tailback right up the gut. It's a first down, but will it stand? A flag comes out as Kelly runs for about 2 to 3 yards. And Coach Dodge says this is offsides. He's pleading his case with the officials, hoping that's going to be the call. And the line judge on the near side having a quick, or not so quick, conversation with the referee here.
That flag was thrown either right at the snap or just a hair of a second after. So one would think that offsides might be the call here, but there seems to be a lot of discussion.
Yeah,
and it looks like Northern's going to be, I don't know. I mean, there seems to be more discussion than if it was, in fact, offsides.
Yeah, Coach Dodge is not hearing anything he likes to hear from the officials. Even looks like he's finally laughing about some of these calls on the sideline here because he's chatting with the officials, and this is going to come back 5 yards on what appears to be a.
So the question on this one is does the tactic confuse opponents? We have a defender that matches up with the player that's meant to confuse opponents. So that's the first question. Is this enough, I guess?
I would say yes. I mean, he certainly, I don't know what else he thinks he's doing over there, facing the sideline within a yard after a substitution formation. I mean, he doesn't fool the defense because 5 ends up covering him.
Yep.
There's no doubt in my mind that the intent is for that guy to be open and catch a pass.
Yeah. And so then the other question is, the coach asked or talked to us about this when our referee conference with them at the beginning asked about the special plays, and the coach said, we have a play where we line up a guy really wide, and our white hat told him, well, if it's not a substitution to deceive, then it's fine. And I guess the question is, should we be probing that more ahead of time? So what do you guys do, or what does your crews do in terms of probing that ahead of time? Because maybe if he just asked him, well, what does it look like? And he tells us and we say, okay, well, let's not run that today. Or something to that effect. Does that make sense to do, or is that enough and just say, you're paid to do this, figure it out type thing?
I know referees, what are your thoughts when stuff like that pops up in your pregame meetings?
If a coach comes in and tries to talk to me and says that he has this hideout play, we'll have him walk it through. And the minute it sounds like a substitution or the substitution word pops up, the immediate response is going to be, well, coach, you can try that today, but it's going to be a 15-yard foul. So my suggestion is let's not try to attempt it. The next line is going to be, well, I cleared it with the supervisor. And our response is again going to be, well, we can clear it again, but I'm pretty sure that the 15-yard penalty is going to be the right decision. So my advice would be to keep that one out of the playbook for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay. And that's pretty much all I had. So if there's other discussion that anyone has about timing substitution stuff, or questions or feedback that you guys do that works for you, this is kind of your time.
Oh, I don't see any questions. So, you know, Ryan, I think I speak for Jeremy. You have something?
I was just looking at a lot of chat going on about that 12th player discussion. So I don't know if you guys want to close that out a little bit more.
Go ahead.
And ultimately, I think people are getting it right where they're saying do what your supervisor wants. But if there's any doubt from the camps and clinics that I've attended, both on the East Coast, CFO West, and in the COC, it's a dangerous, kind of a dangerous action for the line of scrimmage guy to throw a flag on what he thinks could be the 12th player on defense. But again, do what your supervisor says, but when in doubt, as a line of scrimmage guy, if he's offside, easy. Go ahead and get him for DOF. But getting him for the ILS might be a dangerous concept for you to try to do. Deep wings handle it. The other thing that was seen about the opposite side deep wing, yeah, it might be tough to see where he's at that point, but somebody nailed it in the text box that said communication is key. And the deep three should be communicating knowing that that's the 12th guy running off. And if we have O2Os, typically I know I hear in my ear, if we have a 12th man situation, the back judge is the one leading it. He's saying that's number 12, that's number 12, we're going to throw, okay, throw it. And on the third throw it, we got 3 flags going up in the air. So that's another opportunity that we can use and utilize those O2Os. Or if you don't have O2Os, some other crew communication discussing your pre-games, make sure we get those 3 flags going.
I agree with that. Anybody else got anything for Ryan? No, Ryan, on behalf of everybody here on the call and everybody who probably gets a chance to watch the video, I really appreciate you taking the time and thanks for putting the presentation together.
Thanks, guys.
A couple things of note. Monday night we'll do the SAC test. So we'll have that conversation at 8 Eastern on Monday night. Parker, you're presenting next week on defensive, like the passing game fouls, defensive holding, OPI, DPI, that kind of stuff. You have a day. Did you pick a day and time for that? We can't hear you. Nope. All right. Well, that'll go out to everybody here next week. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not a CFO member, I posted the CFO video that just came through on targeting to our YouTube page, and I linked it because it's all of our videos are unlisted, but I'll take care of that in the future. But thanks again, guys. Enjoy your weekends, and look forward to seeing most of you guys on Monday. So thanks, guys. Ryan.